I'm Farah Morali. Tonight, mourning the loss of a Canadian Olympic figure skater, now confirmed dead in a multi-car crash northwest of Toronto.
I think it's been very, very difficult for everybody to kind of process.
We take you to the facility where Alexandra Paul trained to learn how the skating community is paying tribute. Plus,
this is a big problem when we talk about tenant rights in the city of Toronto.
a new analysis shows the majority of Airbnb listings in Toronto are for long-term rentals, why that has some concerned. And
it's my first time moving away from my family, so I'm kind of scared about that, but yeah, I want to have the unique experience.
the nerves and excitement of a new school year. We take you to TMU for move-in day at the dorms.
This is CBC Late Night News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The skating community is mourning the death of one of its own tonight. 31-year-old Alexandra Paul has been confirmed killed in a crash last week. Her young son survived the crash, which happened near Shelburne, northwest of Toronto. Greg Ross visited the facility where she once trained and has our top story tonight.
This image, sent out by the Dufferin OPP, is from the scene of a multi-car collision on Tuesday. According to the OPP, a transport truck entered a construction zone and ran into a line of stopped cars. Alexandra Paul was in one of those cars with her 10-month-old son, Charlie. He was rushed to a children's hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police say Paul was pronounced dead on the scene.
So I think it's been very, very difficult for everybody to kind of process. Another one of Alex.
Ryan Arnold is a former teammate of Paul's at the Mariposa International Training Center in Barrie and a close friend.
She was determined as a skater, as a person. She was elegant, she was graceful, she was classy, smart, kind, just beautiful inside and out. Just a wonderful person.
He says the news of Paul's death has sent shockwaves through the skating community. In a statement from Skate Canada, they said, "As we remember Alexandra's contributions to the sport, we also reflect on the camaraderie and sportsmanship she exemplified. She was not only an accomplished athlete, but also a true role model for aspiring skaters, demonstrating the values of resilience, perseverance, and sportsmanlike conduct."
When she was in the room, you know, her smile was contagious. She was always engaged, you know, in anybody's, you know, story, or whether it's on the ice or off the ice.
Paul, along with her husband and ice dance partner Mitchell Islam, were three-time Canadian national bronze medalists and represented Canada at the 2014 Olympics. They met and trained together at the Mariposa School of Skating.
I got to see their skating develop and all of their successes, but not only their skating development, but their personal relationship and how that started to blossom and turn into like a wonderful, you know, story for them, a wonderful love story that, you know, ended them up being back here in Barrie and starting a family. They were just starting that next chapter with their little guy, Charlie. He's 10 months old.
A GoFundMe has been set up to help the family and has already raised over $200,000. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
An update to a story we brought you yesterday about the killing of a restaurant owner in Owen Sound. Sharif Rahman died in hospital days after he was beaten over what police described as a dispute over an unpaid dining bill. Today, mourners lined the streets of the community to say farewell and to demand justice. Philip Lee Shannock was there and has more.
Dozens of people lined the streets to pay their last respects to Sharif Rahman.
His kindness and his peacefulness, that's what it really speaks towards. Right, that's why everyone's coming out, because he was that type of person that, you know, you want to support him and his family.
Born in Bangladesh, Rahman was among the newcomers in this community on the shores of Georgian Bay. There has been tension, but also solidarity.
A few years ago, there was vandalism on the front door of the mosque, and a whole community of people came together, like probably 50 or so, and they stood outside that mosque on the next Friday night to make the people inside feel safe while they worshipped.
Rahman owned the Curry House in the city's downtown. A week and a half ago, he was attacked by 3 men who were leaving his restaurant. Police say it was a dispute over an unpaid bill. He died in hospital 2 days ago. This memorial has been growing steadily all day. People here say almost everyone in town has had a meal here. They come not just for the food, but to support a valued member of the community. The mayor said Rahman served on a local committee and would cook food for charity fundraisers on top of his own long work days.
Always a smile on his face, always warm, always very, very nice to talk to, and so happy to see everyone. He loved the community and he loved everyone in it.
Police are investigating his death as a homicide. They released these surveillance camera images and say 3 white males fled in a gray or blue Ford Escape. This longtime friend says he can't believe Rahman is gone.
Definitely not about the money, because he was such a gracious person. If the person didn't want to pay, he would have asked him, okay, you know what, God is there to help me go.
The National Council of Canadian Muslims are asking the police to consider all possible motives. Philip Lishanok, CBC News, Owen Sound, Ontario.
Now to Toronto, where police have identified the city's latest homicide victim. 37-year-old Majid Abdul Aziz from Toronto died shortly after being stabbed at a residential tower in East York yesterday afternoon. Bloodstains could be seen on the balcony windows at the apartment complex on Woodbine Avenue. Police say they're still trying to determine what led to the stabbing. Officers believe it was not a random attack, but couldn't share details about the relationship between the victim and the suspect. A 34-year-old was arrested on scene yesterday and has since been charged with first-degree murder. To another homicide investigation in the city's West End, where police have now identified a 23-year-old victim, Nakari Negus Henry Robinson. He was fatally shot at the Royal Caribbean Cafe near St. Clair in Dufferin on Thursday. Police say Henry Robinson went into a restaurant and asked for help after being shot. A 51-year-old woman was also shot on Thursday. She remains in stable condition. Police say they are still looking for a suspect who fled on foot. A new analysis by advocacy group Inside Airbnb is shining a light on the apparent growth of long-term rentals on Airbnb. Its findings show that the majority of active listings are for rentals 28 days or longer. Some groups are now sounding the alarm, calling for changes to protect rental supply for a city in the middle of a housing crisis. Patrick Swadden explains.
Farouk Normuradov has been renting apartments for long-term rentals on Airbnb for 10 years. He says for some looking for a space to live, it's a source of reliable and easy to access housing.
You avoid the whole hassle of dealing with the furniture, of getting pre-approved and other things. When you are dealing with long-term tenancy, you have to provide a lot of documents to get pre-approved and get the property for 1-year lease.
Normuradov is not alone. A new analysis by the advocacy group Inside Airbnb has found that 20,000 of the 25,000 active Toronto Airbnb listings are long-term listings. The average rental for Airbnb in Toronto now 54 days. But this city councillor says those long-term rentals fall outside city regulations.
They're outside of the Landlord and Tenant Act, and they're kind of just outside the wild, wild west is what people are calling it.
Back in 2021, Toronto introduced rules saying hosts can only rent out short-term rentals in their principal residence for stays of 28 days or less. But since then, some advocates say there's actually been a growth in the number of long-term rentals on the platform.
Prior to the regulations, about 6% of Airbnb's inventory was for 28-day or more bookings, and now it's about 80%.
But what about tenants?
And this is a big problem when we talk about tenant rights in the city of Toronto. It essentially turns tenants into guests, landlords into hosts, and it replaces tenancies with bookings and the Residential Tenancies Act with a service agreement.
And given Toronto's housing crisis, this expert says it also isn't helping prices.
That's putting upward pressure on rents, because we're converting units that would otherwise have stable 12-month leases into units that are being rented, as you say, not 100% of the time, so the kind of the occupancy rate is lower, but also they're being rented at higher rates.
But for landlords like Normuradov, he says the long-term listings give some landlords more flexibility, and he plans to keep using the platform.
Some people do not want to rent their property long-term for 1 year plus. They just don't want to do it.
Patrick Swadden, CBC News, Toronto.
In recent weeks, we've been telling you about a chemical spill into the waters around Mimico Creek in Lake Ontario. It stemmed from a fire in an industrial building in Etobicoke. The cleanup process from that spill is still continuing, with crews likely to remain on site for much longer. And wildlife is being badly affected. Critics say the provincial government is not taking the initiative it should. Travis Danraj reports.
What started as a massive industrial fire has turned into an environmental nightmare.
I was pretty alarmed.
For 2 weeks, crews have been trying to remove chemicals that spilled into West Toronto's Mimico Creek that flows into Lake Ontario. Lauren Allen has been watching it all unfold.
I'm concerned that there will be damage that will be coming out for years to come that we can't even understand right now.
What exactly spilled remains unknown, but its impact on wildlife is clear. Volunteers have been trying to rescue animals covered by the sludge. The animals are brought here to the Toronto Wildlife Centre. They've rescued over 100 so far. Unfortunately, they were unable to save 17. The organization says its resources are stretched to the limit right now. These ducks were just brought into the center, their blood being sampled to determine if they are stable enough to wash.
It's pretty horrific conditions that these animals are coming in. Now they're not only oiled, but they haven't been able to eat properly or drink properly for days.
The center says it's doing its best, but has limited funds. The province isn't kicking in money to help them. We asked why. You know, they're not getting funding from the government. Why is that?
This is the first I've heard of where you said you're at. I think the issue here and what I'm hearing from people is, are you working collaboratively with all of the partners? Yes.
Almost all of the wild animals we work with are protected either provincially or federally. We have very strict protections in law, except when they get into trouble.
As the race to save other animals continues, the government says there has been no impact on drinking water and expects the cleanup to take until at least October. Travis Danraj, CBC News, Toronto.
The countdown is on for thousands of post-secondary students who will be back in the classroom very soon. But for some of them today, it was all about settling in to what will be their new homes for the next semester. Moving day unfolded for a few colleges and universities in Toronto, and there were lots of emotions.
There's everything you can imagine, right? We see lots of students who are ready to go and are basically waving goodbye to their family and supporters and can't wait for them to leave. And then there's lots of people that are really close to their families. So maybe their first time away from home, maybe they're moving from overseas. This is a huge change, right?
Well, I hate moving day and I love Toronto, so a bunch of mixed feelings. I'm very excited to meet who I'm living with and I'm excited to explore.
My first time moving away from my family, so I'm kind of scared about that, but yeah, I want to have the unique experience. So, because my family's like a bit far from here, because they're in Saskatchewan. So, over here in Ontario, it's going to be a little bit different.
Lines of luggage and furniture snaked through downtown Toronto today as more than 1,000 TMU students moved into their dorm rooms. First-year students at Humber College also settled into residences today. Thousands more, including U of T students, are gearing up to head into their dorms next weekend, with the start of fall semester classes now fast approaching. Kim McDonald joins us now for a first look at the forecast. Kim, some pretty good weather for moving day, I'd say.
Yes, and my daughter's at Humber and she's an RA, so she was welcoming in new students. And I just a shout out to the parents. I know the kids are nervous and excited, but the parents, very emotional to say goodbye to your kids when they enter college or university.
A lot of tissues necessary.
Yes, I can just tell you it's gonna get better. You'll find things to do in your free time. Yeah, beautiful day for moving day. Not too hot, not too cold, no humidity. I love all of it. Big ridge of high pressure in place, and that's going to stick around for Monday and again on Tuesday, but you can't really miss this cold front coming through, and that's going to impact the weather, but not until Tuesday overnight. So we got a couple of sunny days ahead. 26 degrees is what's normal this time of year, 16 degrees for a low. Our record was 37.2 back in 1948, but we're expecting 23 degrees for Monday. Not bad. Our overnight temperatures are cool. Yeah, you might be able to turn off the AC for another day or so. Temperatures for the afternoon, or this is still the morning, 14 degrees in the morning and then 23 for the afternoon. So not too bad. And we'll get back with your long-range forecast in just a moment.
All right, thanks so much. Another U.S. city was in mourning today after another mass shooting. The city was Jacksonville, Florida, and police say the attack was racially motivated. A masked white man fatally shot 3 people inside a dollar store in a predominantly black neighborhood. The CBC's Katie Nicholson reports.
In times like these.
A day of grief and support in Jacksonville.
Let us pray, Lord.
Many, including the mayor, seeking comfort at church.
It feels some days like we're going backwards.
On Saturday afternoon, a 21-year-old white man in combat gear walked up to this Dollar General store. Video released by police shows what happened next. He fired 11 rounds at this sedan before going inside and firing again. In all, he killed 3 people, a 52-year-old woman and 2 men aged 19 and 29. All were black. Then he took his own life.
The manifesto is quite frankly, the diary of a madman.
3 manifestos, in fact, which laid out his hatred for black people.
It was racist violence that has been perpetuated by rhetoric and policies designed to attack black people, period.
While Governor Ron DeSantis didn't mince words,
the state and its people condemn the horrific racially motivated murders perpetrated by a deranged scumbag.
As a part of his so-called war on woke, Florida has revised how black history is taught, suggesting that black people benefited from slavery because they learned important skills. Some linked that cultural backdrop and the shooting.
To see 3 precious black lives taken in a state where you have an asinine governor attacking black people, attacking black history.
This attack came as hundreds converged in D.C. for the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, where Martin Luther King Jr. uttered those famous words.
I have a dream.
His granddaughter says the shooting shows that dream is still a long way off.
That was a call to action, and 60 years later, the dream still has not been fulfilled. We are not where we need to be.
But for now, many choose to be here to hold space for 3 people killed simply because they were black.
Help us.
Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
Toronto's captivating art and mural festival made its return this weekend. Celebrating its 5th year, Yorkville Murals transforms part of the neighborhood into a cultural extravaganza. Talia Ricci caught up with the co-founder and an artist to find out what visitors can expect.
I think that Yorkville has a really rich artistic history that dates back to the 60s when it was like the hippie capital of Canada. So it's really nice to sort of take a look back at its history and try to sort of reinterpret what the neighborhood can become culturally in this day and age. Yorkville Murals is a project that is presented by Ink Entertainment and Tagliatella Galleries. It's done in collaboration with the Bloor Yorkville Business Association. We are on our 5th year, and this year thematic, it's called No Empty Spaces. So it's the idea of activating different parts of our neighborhood with art. So looking at parking lots, streets, avenues, the inside of hotels, shopping centers, and use all these spaces to create opportunities for local artists to create beautiful artwork.
I was commissioned by Four Seasons Hotel Toronto to work on this year's mural for Du Jour.
What's the story behind this piece?
So it would feel kind of like a missed opportunity to not take Du Jour, the name of the restaurant, and then reference the French Riviera Côte d'Azur. So I referenced a lot of color palettes from the French Riviera, the romanticism, the vibrancy, in order to bring a really, really creative and bright palette to a very concrete jungle in this part of Toronto. Bay in Yorkville is often very gray, and I wanted to be able to transport the guests of the hotel to a warmer climate.
We feel that, for example, murals is such a special way to create artwork and bring it to the streets so that people can enjoy it, right? And I think that the concept of the festival definitely evolved from that point of murals, and now we're just trying to involve so many other forms of art into the project, but always taking in consideration of placing them in the public space for everyone to enjoy.
Kim McDonald joins us once again for a look at your extended forecast. Kim, so great to see people out for festivals like that, but it occurred to me that we're actually in the last weekend of August. Next time we chat, it'll be September, and wonder if that's going to be reflected in the weather.
I think we have a good week. That's the good news. I put out on Twitter, I said, how do you feel about this? Pump the brakes that it's the end of summer, or bring on the sweater weather? And so far, pump the brakes is winning on that one. So we've got sunshine, but cool-ish temperatures. We're below seasonal for the next few days at least. This cold front doesn't come in until Tuesday night. So Monday's looking good, Tuesday's looking good, Tuesday night, some more rain. I normally would say, oh, but we need the rain, but we don't need the rain. We've had a lot of it this summer. And you'll notice that the winds will pick up as that front is moving through. It'll start to die down again later on Wednesday, but it'll get a little bit on the breezy side. Temperature-wise, here we are, 23 degrees for a daytime high in Toronto, Hamilton, Barrie, Bancroft. We're all under this high pressure. Not much in the way of humidity. It only feels like 25, so if you don't like that sticky weather, you're in luck. And then once that front moves through, temperatures drop off a little bit on Wednesday, down to about 21 degrees. Now, here's my fun fact for the night. We have not hit 30 degrees Celsius in Toronto in the month of August, and it doesn't look like we're going to. And we haven't done that in 15 years. It was 2008, and July 28th was the last time we hit 30 degrees this summer. So there's the next 7 days, and you don't see a 30-degree on there. And then we're in to September, and temperatures will be much warmer by then. We're looking at humidex readings at least in the low 30s for the long weekend.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much, Kim.
You're welcome.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. But before we go, we want to take you to Tamil Fest in Scarborough. It's one of the largest street festivals in the east side of the city, celebrating Tamil culture, heritage, arts, culture, and cuisine. Have a great night.